G'day, I'm Paul. So, you're in the market for a Golf, but you need to be seen in an SUV. Well, I reckon I might have the car for you. It is the Volkswagen T-Roc. Now, keep in mind, this has been out overseas in Europe for a couple of years now, but we finally have it here in Australia. We only get two variants, and this is the entry-level sport variant. It's priced at just over $40,000, and it competes with cars like the Kia Seltos, the Mazda CX-30, the Ford Puma. There's actually heaps of competitors in this new segment. They're all basically bigger hatchbacks with more luxury features and a bit more price. Now today we're going to do a detailed review of the T-Roc. If you do want to skip ahead to other parts of this review, you can use the time codes up on the screen there, or if you're on YouTube, just scroll down and use the chapters below. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell icon. It's going to tell you every single time we drive a car that's been out for a while. Let's talk exterior. You've got 6 colours to pick from, and all but white and red are $600 extra. I love this colour here. It's like an off-white. I think there's a bit of pearl or something in that. It's a really nice looking colour and also a nice looking car. You've got to remember that while this is sort of Golf sized, they've gone a little more adventurous with the styling. Where the Golf is traditionally a bit conservative unless you go to a GTI or a Golf R, this really takes it up a notch there. They've added this nice looking 3D grille. You've got those LED headlights off to the side. A little bit of chrome there thrown at it as well, so you feel like it is premium and value for money when it comes to spending this kind of coin. So in addition to those LED headlights, you've got indicators in this daytime running light down the bottom. And these are really cool because that whole section lights up when you flick the indicator on. They're not something that we normally see in this segment. Okay, let's talk wheels. The standard wheel is an 18-inch alloy wheel, but this has the Sound and Style package, which brings with it 19-inch alloy wheels. But in addition to those wheels, you can see here it's got a slightly low profile tire. It brings with it adaptive suspension, so that should in theory smooth out the ride and make this a little more compliant over bumpy roads and the type of roads that are really going to be affected by a low profile tyre. It is a good looking alloy wheel as well, with that sort of brushed chrome on the side and then that shadow paint inside the wheel as well, plus a red brake caliper too. R-line badge here and on the front there, so this signifies that this is the sportier version of the T-Roc. Now, as part of this package, you can also option a panoramic glass roof. You get these nice looking brushed aluminium roof rails, privacy glass. You've got these wheel arch protectors to make it look like it can go off-road, even though you're not really going to be doing any off-road driving. Now, in terms of dimensions, how big is this? Well, to put it into perspective, it's around 250 millimeters shorter than a Tiguan. And it is also slightly shorter than a Golf, but it is wider and taller. So you are getting a slightly bigger proportion out on the road, but it's not monstrous. It's not the size of a mid-size SUV. It's quite a compact size, but still looks big out on the road, if that makes sense. Come around to the back. In addition to the LED headlights at the front, you get LED tail lights, a 4Motion badge because this is all-wheel drive, T-Roc badge along the back there, and like most Volkswagens these days, a fold-out Volkswagen badge that doubles as the boot opener and also the nook for the reverse camera. Look, in terms of design, I think they've really done well here, and when you think about the target demographic for this car, it's going to be probably a younger person, someone that wants to look a little stylish. I think this really nails the brief. Okay, so we are inside the T-Roc now. Let's start with the key. This is what it looks like. So standard sort of looking Volkswagen key, lock, unlock down the bottom, and then you have the boot button. It's a flip out key, but it's a proximity key, so you're never really going to need to use that. On the back, you've got the Volkswagen logo. You just keep that in your pocket, grab the door handle, and then there's a start button just there to turn it over. Now, what about styling? Okay, so it looks nice. I think this is nicely presented. It is a bit of a sea of black, but it's nicely separated. The problem is the materials. It's just nasty throughout. It's really unimpressive in terms of the material they've used here. And this is similar to the Polo in the sense that they've just made it quite rugged. And I don't think a car like this needs to be rugged. A good example in this segment is the CX-30. It's a really high-end premium feeling interior. And I think this just misses the mark a little bit in that regard. So what about the touch points? Well, that's all nice and firm, but over here, center console is soft. The door rest is soft as well. Now, how soft is all this stuff? Well, we have a tool that will tell us. It's called a durometer. We've tested the surfaces around the car. If you want to see how this compares to other cars that we've tested, just use the link in the description below. Now, what about build quality? Actually feels really nice and solid. Everything is really well put together here. So big tick for build quality. Okay, let's move on to infotainment. You get an 8-inch Discover Media infotainment system. That's what Volkswagen calls it. Today I'll give you a quick overview. We've already done a detailed review of this infotainment system. If you want to watch that, you can click up here, but let's have a look at this. So this is your main radio screen. Now you'll notice there, as my hand gets closer, it has a sensor that's able to detect that, and then it brings up extra menus down the bottom, and it makes everything a little bit larger because it knows that you're approaching. So here you'll be able to find AM, FM, no DAB plus digital radio, which is disappointing. Also, no voice recognition. When you push that, it just tells you that Volkswagen has to activate it. So it's a little disappointing that you don't get those features, but I'll show you a workaround in just a second. In the media menu, you have Bluetooth. You also have the ability to stream over the USB ports, an SD card slot, or CD player, which is a little bit old school, but it's good that it actually has that feature in itself. You have inbuilt satellite navigation. Let's have a quick look at that. This system is actually not too bad. It's nice and quick, and then entering destinations is pretty straightforward. Now, in terms of smartphone mirroring, this is the way you get around the voice recognition issue, because with a long push of this, you can actually use your smartphone's voice recognition. So I'll push and hold. Cancel. So now
There's nothing to cancel.
Thank you. So now I'm using Siri instead of the car's inbuilt system. Now on that Apple CarPlay, I'll show you what that looks like. Really nice looking integration, super high resolution, and it takes up that entire screen, nice and smooth as well. I'll show you what Android Auto looks like. Good looking integration there, all works fairly smoothly. We'll have a look at maps. That all moves around nice and easily as well. Now let's jump over to the screen ahead of the driver. This is Volkswagen's version of Virtual Cockpit. Now you can tell that this is the slightly cheaper version of it because it's slightly pixelated. It's not super high resolution. And the other downside is that you can only have your map displayed either on the infotainment system or the virtual cockpit. So right now it's on the infotainment system, and I press this and it switches it over to here. But you can supersize it by pressing the view button, and then you can switch between different context menus as well. So it is good to see that this is standard, because you don't really see any other cars in this segment with a high-end looking screen like that. But you know, I think it is slightly behind the times in terms of other virtual cockpit style systems. Now, what about speakers? You get a 6-speaker sound system as standard, but the sound and style package that this car has fitted to it brings with it a 300-watt Beats audio system, for those of you who like your Beats. In terms of connectivity, you've got 2 USB ports up the front here. One is for your smartphone connectivity, but you can use the other one for charging. Let's talk safety technology. So you get autonomous emergency braking as standard. That also detects vulnerable road users, which is a bit of a mouthful. Blind spot monitoring built into that wing mirror. You get a lane departure warning, radar cruise control that's operated on the steering wheel. You also get semi-autonomous parking, rear cross traffic alert, and it's also worth noting that the AEB system works in reverse as well. Now, in terms of the reverse camera, you get front and rear parking sensors. Let's have a look at that, see what the quality is like. Okay, here it is here. So you can see your front and rear parking sensors on display there. You can see guidelines and a really decent quality as well, so you're not going to be running into anything accidentally. Let's talk about practicality, and we'll start with storage. Where are you going to put your phone? It easily lives down there. You can also slide it down the front there. It's not a wireless phone charger, but it sits neatly there. Bottle storage. You've got 3 different sized holes there, and then one inside the door with a little bit of room there either side. Okay, center console. This slides forwards and backwards, which is pretty cool. That's a really weird shape. So I can fit the bottle in there. But you can see there's not much room to close it, and it's so deep, but it's not huge. Weird. Okay, glove box. Look, it's reasonably sized. We can fit the bottle in there. That's where your CD player lives as well. And that closes up fairly nicely. In terms of comfort, you have automatic dual zone climate control. There are heated seats here, but these are part of an optional package. And then seat comfort. So this is the optional luxury package. You get these nice looking seats. They're pretty comfortable as well. They're manually adjustable for both the driver and passenger, but the seating position is pretty good. The steering wheel sits nicely in the hand. All this stuff's easy to reach as well. So big tick there for seating comfort as well. Okay, back seat. Look, it's not the world's most spacious second row, and you can see here that my knees are sort of firmly planted into that front seat. Keep in mind though that, I don't know, I'm 185 centimeters tall and this seat is fairly far back, so this isn't terribly disastrous, but I do have heaps of toe room, and while headroom's good, you're probably going to be a little compromised if you are taller than me with that roof cutting in slightly. What features do you get in this second row? So that seat pattern continues here with the multicolour. You get a centre armrest with 2 cup holders. Fits in there. They actually look like they're adjustable. Oh, that's clever. So if you've got a smaller cup like this, it won't actually go anywhere. So I like that feature. And then on top of that, you have a ski port to give you access to the boot, and then your bottle can also go in a door pocket down here with a little bit of room off to the side. You get air vents for the second row, 12 volt outlet down the bottom, but no USB charging ports back here with matte pockets. Now you have this panoramic roof, but that's not standard. That's part of an options package. I think it is worth ticking because it kind of just makes the cabin feel a little airier and a bit bigger. So it's worth having a think about that when you are speccing your car. But look, aside from it being tight, it is a nice place to be seated. Okay, let's move on to cargo space. Now with the option pack, you get the powered tailgate, otherwise it's manual. You have just under 400 litres of cargo space here with the second row intact, and then it expands to a little over 1200 when you drop the second row. I'll show you how that works in a second, but before that, have a look under here. We have a space saver spare tyre and what looks like another giant subwoofer. I love the way that they utilise that space that you'd otherwise waste, and then you have a few other bits and pieces around the side like a jack, and I guess you could actually store some of your valuables in there as well. You've got hooks on the side here in case you need to tie anything down, but aside from that, it's a fairly sort of straightforward boot. Let me show you how this disappears, and then we will pop our luggage in. That jumps out of the way. Now, let's have a look at what it looks like with our luggage in here. I'll be keen to see whether we can actually fit our suitcase in. No dramas at all, that fits nicely. All right, let's drop that second row as well. This is how you're going to access your 1200 litres of cargo space. It's a fairly flat floor as well, and given it's an SUV, it has a high lip, so loading things in is going to be pretty straightforward, and then you can utilise all the space up to the first row. We've hit the road in the T-Roc, and it's powered by a 2-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol engine. Makes 140 kilowatts of power and 320 newton meters of torque. It's a pretty healthy amount for a small car like this. That means it's got a little bit of poke, a little bit of urgency. That's all mated to a 7-speed dual clutch transmission, and this uses a permanent all-wheel drive system. I think it's more an on-demand system, but it's always shuffling torque between the front and the rear axle to give you that optimum traction. It means that you get a little bit more sure-footedness than you would if this was strictly front-wheel drive only. Okay, dual clutch transmission. This one's not the best one in the world for low speed, so it still feels quite elastic and can be a tiny bit jerky depending on the type of surface you're on. So if you're on an incline or something like that, it can be a little indecisive, but for the most part, it's pretty good. Right now, as we're cruising along, it's in 7th gear. If I sort of lay into it, it takes a little while to get up and moving, but for the most part, it's responsive enough. Once it does find that gear, it's all good to go from there. Okay, so Volkswagen claims a 0 to 100 figure of 7.2 seconds. Let's see if we can match that. That's pretty impressive. Let's talk fuel economy. Volkswagen claims a combined fuel economy of 7.2 litres per 100 Ks. Let's have a look at how we're doing. 9.2 litres per 100 Ks. We've predominantly been doing city driving with a little stint of highway driving to get out here, so it is higher than claimed, but I'm okay with the number. It's not too far gone from the official figure. Let's talk about the drive modes. So you select them using this selector here. You can basically go from normal to off-road mode and then an individual off-road setting as well, plus an ICE mode. But if you push in, you actually get presented with those on the screen. And then if you go to sport mode, immediately the gearbox goes into S. The suspension becomes firmer because remember, this car has been optioned with the adaptive suspension, and then everything's a whole lot more responsive. When I get stuck into the throttle, it's bouncing back through the gears a whole lot quicker. And if we jump back into the normal setting here, it is actually considerably firmer in sport mode. In normal mode though, it's quite compliant. It's really nice and comfortable despite the fact it's riding on 19-inch alloy wheels, so they've done a good job sorting the ride out. Volkswagen does kind of market this as the lifestyle vehicle, but with 158 millimeters of ground clearance, you're not really going to be doing much off-roading, and that's obviously despite the off-road mode here. This is effectively just an adjustment of the stability control settings, allowing you to have a little bit more slip from those wheels. You can actually see how Volkswagen's off-road mode works by clicking up here to have a look at our Maric review. We give you an example there of an ABS stop with and without off-road mode enabled on a gravel surface. Righto, let's talk handling. Pop this into sport mode. You've actually got paddle shifters as well, so you can manually select gears. Yeah, it's actually not too bad. So it sits nice and flat through the corners. There's plenty of traction there. I did feel that front left wheel slipping a little bit, but immediately you can feel it sending torque to the rear. It's quite responsive as well when you've got it locked into a gear. So look, this isn't a Golf GTI, but I reckon it's pretty close to being kind of like a warm hatch SUV. Let's talk road noise. We're doing about 80 kilometers an hour here on a fairly coarse chip road, and it is a little bit noisy inside the cabin. I think a lot of that has to do with those lower profile tires and perhaps this platform just allowing a little bit too much road noise in. Look, it's not terrible, but it is noticeable as the speed picks up. Let's talk visibility. At the front, it's very easy to see. You've got this big window here and you can clearly see front corners of the car. The wing mirror is good. Visibility out the rear isn't fantastic. It's a very narrow envelope, so if you've got your mates sitting in that second row, it's going to be a little tricky to see past their heads. But for the most part, there aren't any major or glaring blind spots in the car. Okay, Volkswagen T-Roc, it is a great little package. If you're the target demographic for this car, which is probably going to be people younger than me, or even people older than me that still are very cool, again, very much unlike me, I think this could fit the bill. The only downsides to it are the scratchy surfaces inside the cabin. Our understanding is that there could be an update to this car coming in a year or two that will address some of those things, but if you can look beyond that, the interior is nicely presented and it comes with plenty of features. The only other downside though is that the extra options that you get with the packages can be expensive because you can't just get individual things, you have to get the whole package. So keep that in mind when you're shopping, but with a low starting price and a lot of standard equipment outside of the options, I don't know, it doesn't really put a foot wrong. It's nice and punchy to drive and puts a smile on your face, which is what is important about a car. So let me know in the comments below, have you ordered one? What do you think about it? If you're from other parts of the world and you've had it around for a little bit longer, let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. If you did enjoy this video, I'd love it if you could share it, hit the subscribe button and also press like and the bell icon. That's going to tell you every single time we drive something new. But until next time, take it easy.